This episode is brought to you by iZotope. Our friends over at iZotope create the most thoughtfully and intuitively designed software for audio repair, mixing, and mastering. I use their tools every day for the podcast, and I love it. And I think you will too. Go over to iZotope.com and check it out. That's iZotope.com. iZotope. Use the code FRET10 at checkout for a 10% discount. That's all caps, F-R-E-T, and the number 10.
Allow me to live and breathe like a man.
You've heard his words on classic albums like Pacific Ocean Blue and Friends. His 1969 collaboration with Brian Wilson, A World of Peace Must Come, gained almost legendary status as one of pop's most storied lost albums, before being resurrected to great acclaim by Light in the Attic in 2008. Now you're cordially invited to take a trip into the mind of poet and songwriter Stephen J. Kalinich. Heyday Again Records presents I Love My Life, a postcard from one of the last standing poets of peace and excitation. Order your copy today. I Love My Life by Stephen J. Kalinich and Friends. You'll see why heavy hitters like Brian Wilson, Dennis Wilson, Paul McCartney, Steve Cropper, P.F. Sloan, and Diana Ross have all worked with him. I Love My Life by Stephen J. Kalinich. Order today at realgonemusic.com. Again, that's realgonemusic.com. The second single from Future Prophet Records is here. Birthday Girl presents Never the Sound, available right now on Future Prophet Records. That's Future, P-R-O-P-H-E-T, records.com. Order now. Is Billy Joel the most successful, formerly suicidal human being on the planet? After my deep dive into his river of dreams, I feel I understand why he chose to dam the thing up. Many wives later, and just as many bank accounts sucked dry by them and others, many brutally over-rude tabloid stories later, so many snotty douches just like me, not bothering to take him seriously. So I listened then. I listened over and over and over. And so here is my response. Billy Joel, I love you. I'll keep exploring the gutters too, but that doesn't mean I don't now finally love what you do.
He's so reviled. In essence, he's just a human, just like, gosh, people go nuts for like David Bowie. And I think there's some okay songs in there.
Seeing him as less of a punchline and more of a real person, it took a key and unlocked a door for me that made this a really important journey for me. That is the last thing that people are really going to expect who know what I do and who know how I felt about Billy Joel. I take him completely seriously now. Welcome to Discograffiti, the Music Obsessives podcast that gives freaks like you and me the chance to connect with the brotherhood obsessed with rating the entire discography of every single artist and band that ever mattered. I'm your host, Dave Gebroe, and with 4 new episodes each week, you're going to gain a comprehensive knowledge of an act's history and output in the time it takes to listen to one album. Each new guest swings a hard left into an area you either had no idea you needed to know about or know all about and can't believe you're not alone out there. And in this episode, we'll be turning our spray cans on Billy Joel! Psst, along with our special guest, UNREST'S Mark Robinson. In this episode, I talk with the epitome of DIY punk spirit, who can also write a pop hook like the best of them, the great Mark Robinson. Of Unrest, Grenadine, Air Miami, Flin Flon, Uncomfortable Police, et al. And together we discuss Billy Joel's entire recorded output. If you're a longtime listener, then you know that I've harbored a longtime hatred of Billy Joel. So why the sudden turnaround in taste, you ask? Discograffiti's Mark Robinson tackles Billy Joel, but only metaphorically series, dissects every last release Billy Joel's ever had a hand in creating. Part 7 covers the era during which Billy catches his manager's hand thrust deep in the cookie jar. Christie Brinkley divorces him. He stops writing pop music, dips his toe in classical waters. His drinking starts getting super scary. He gets married again. His third wife gives him a rehab ultimatum. He gets divorced a third time and then gets married yet again. And he also manages to make and release Stormfront, River of Dreams, and Fantasies and Delusions. The goal for this and the previous episode was to make great art about bad art, to create 2 podcast episodes in inverse qualitative proportion to the rock bottom records being discussed. Needless to say, Mark and I accomplished our goal. Here are just a few of the many things that Mark discusses with Discograffiti in the last episode of this Billy Joel podcast series. The crazed embezzlement fallout with Billy's manager Frank Weber, why we have Sean Ono Lennon to thank for We Didn't Start the Fire, Billy's Shelter Island sessions which collapsed and then transformed into River of Dreams, Billy's swerve into the classical lane with Fantasies and Delusions, and an in-depth deep dive on every song off Stormfront and River of Dreams. And away we go then! October 23rd, 1989, Stormfront. Stormfront's the 11th album by Billy. It was his 3rd album to reach number 1 in the US. There's a few singles here. I Go to Extremes hit number 6. And then And So It Goes reached number 37. The Downeaster Alexa, number 57. And That's Not Her Style, number 77. It was nominated for 5 Grammy Awards. It won 0 of them. This one went 4 times platinum. I'm guessing this one as well, that you have a similar familiarity as with The Bridge.
I mean, I feel like I know this one better just because some of the singles, like We Didn't Start the Fire. That was another, it's kind of like Uptown Girl. Like you could not escape that one. So
right.
I feel like I know this record better. Not the whole album, but I know a couple songs more than I did from The Bridge.
So That's Not Her Style was written for Christie Brinkley. It was the lowest charting song from the album. It failed to crack the top 70, whatever that means. Is there a top 70?
Not that I've heard of.
Billy said the song was, quote, a commentary on all the ridiculous things you read about yourself if you're a celebrity. And, you know, there's a solid, punchy vocal that's sung almost like a threat to the tabloids, but it feels like a bad change right off the bat to me. You know, so it's decent. I wouldn't say it's great. Do you like that one?
I mean, I wrote down Robert Palmer ripoff.
Yeah.
Like it's very
fair.
like Robert Palmer-y. Yeah, it was, it's all right, I guess.
Okay, We Didn't Start the Fire. A series of brief references to 119 political, cultural, scientific, and sporting events between 1949, the year Joel was born, and 1989 in mainly chronological order. It was nominated for Record of the Year, unbelievably, and in late 1989, it became Billy's 3rd single to reach number 1 in the U.S. Despite its success, and I will hand it to Billy for this, Billy later, in many interviews, explained his hatred of the song, and it was panned as one of the worst songs ever by later generations of music critics. The initial idea for the song came when he had just turned 40. He was in a recording studio, and he met a 21-year-old friend of Sean Lennon's who said, it's a terrible time to be 21. And Billy replied, yeah, I remember when I was 21. I thought it was an awful time, and we had Vietnam and, drug problems and civil rights problems, and everything seemed to be awful. And the friend replied, yeah, but it's different for you. You were a kid in the 50s, and everybody knows that nothing happened in the 50s. And Billy retorted, wait a minute, didn't you hear of the Korean War or the Suez Canal crisis? And then that later formed the basic framework for the song. And in 1993, he said, We Didn't Start the Fire is not much of a song. If you take the melody by itself, terrible, like a dentist drill. It's one of the few times I've written the lyrics first, which should be obvious to why I usually prefer to write the music first, because the melody is horrendous. It's like a mosquito droning. It's one of the worst melodies I've ever written. At least he's conscious and aware of it. I'll give it that much.
It's funny that you're saying this because I've always thought it was one of the worst songs ever and like one of the most annoying songs. And then I kind of recently realized that the REM song, It's the End of the World as We Know It, is very similar.
It is.
I think it predates it by 3 or 4 years.
It does. By 2 years.
But weirdly, now that I've had to listen to this for this podcast, I'm like, these lyrics are kind of clever. I don't know. Like, whereas before I just like had to put my fingers in my ears. Now I'm kind of listening to it a little bit. But yeah, I think it's one of the better songs on the record, I guess.
I definitely don't agree. I really don't like it. And it's not...
I mean, that's saying it's one of the better songs on the record is not saying a lot.
It's not saying a lot, I know. Then comes the Downeaster Alexa, which kind of takes his thing as... Oh, by the way, we should probably say that the recording of Stormfront commenced in 1988 and coincided with him finding out about Frank Weber. So in August 89, just before the album was released, Billy dismissed his manager after an audit revealed massive discrepancies. He sued Frank for $90 million. And in January 1990, Billy was awarded $2 million in a partial judgment against Frank Weber. And I didn't know this, but Frank countersued. Can you believe that? The balls of some people. Anyway,
well, I don't know what actually happened, so I can't.
Right. But I know what I was told by a TV show, and the balls of that guy to have done so. So the Downeaster Alexa, why I bring that up here is because it takes Billy's station in life with having been ripped off and on his last legs and gives it a twist in narrative. And it's sung through the persona of an impoverished fisherman off Long Island who's finding it increasingly hard to make ends meet and to keep ownership of his boat. So it's Billy as an impoverished fisherman. I think it's a good vocal, but ultimately I kind of find it hard to connect with the down on his luck fisherman side of Billy. Nor is the sea shanty my favorite of his genre shopping excursions. So I'll say it's decent, but not great.
It's awful.
So here's the one I love. I Go to Extremes, I think is amazing. I've always loved this song. Even when I hated Billy Joel, I thought it was an outlier. Like, wow, I really like this record. It apparently, according to Billy, is an apology that's directed to Christie Brinkley for his erratic personality. In live concerts, he would jokingly create new libertario-esque lyrics for the chorus, such as I Go for Ice Cream. I think easily this is the best song on the record. It's a less brazenly foolhardy and more penitent twist on You May Be Right. As I see it, it's like, you know, instead of like, I'm going to wear this as a badge, it's, you know, I'm sorry, please forgive me for acting this way. It's like him reflecting on the reality of his alcohol-tamed personality disorder more honestly and realistically.
Yeah, it's okay. I don't know. I think my favorite song is not this one.
Okay, Shameless. Shameless was covered by Garth Brooks, who made it a monster hit.
Oh, I did not know that.
It was his 7th number one on the country charts in late 91. So in 93, on stage in Boston, Billy introduced the song by saying, I wanted to write a song like a Jimi Hendrix song. Back in the 60s, he was one of my idols. So it went from Jimi Hendrix to being a country song. So it's an interesting life that the song had. I'm not wild about it, but it's got one of those 1970s style rock gospel hybrid type song constructions that lends itself really well to a country hijacking. So I'm kind of moved by it, despite my best intentions to resist its MOR appeal. I think it's decent.
I wrote down awful. But really? It is interesting, the country music thing, because you can still even hear like the whole history of country music. And at some point in like the late 60s or early 70s, country music just started sounding like every other kind of music. And if you just had a singer with like a little southern accent or somebody singing about a pickup truck, all of a sudden it's a country song.
It's a terrible thing that happened. It really is. It is. It was a legitimate, it was a totally legitimate genre for a long time.
Sure. Right. Yeah. Now it's kind of like, is it rap? Is it pop music? I'm not really sure. Yeah. So I was not a fan of that song.
Okay. Second side, we flip this motherfucker and we have the title track, which is something of a metaphor for Billy and Christie's deteriorating relationship, not to mention his deteriorating songwriting skills, because this limp white funk gurgle's got nothing to offer and it sounds exactly like Sledgehammer. And in fact, Billy has said in interviews that he was, quote, inspired by Sledgehammer for the, quote, driving rhythm section when he was writing this. But it really is like a Xerox copy of the song. And it's just awful. I mean, it sounds exactly like it.
Peter Gabriel, for those of you who were wondering what Sledgehammer was. Yeah, no, it's terrible.
Yeah. Leningrad, written by Billy about a Russian clown named Viktor Razanov, who we met while touring the Soviet Union in 1987. And, although overly serious, I think, and a bit stuffy for being, in essence, an arena rock power ballad, this one just squeaks by into decent for me.
Yeah, not a fan.
Not a fan.
I do love that he toured. I mean, how cool is it that he played in the Soviet Union?
Yeah.
That whole part of the documentary was kind of cool.
Yeah, it was decent. I mean, when they started talking about that stuff is when you knew it was going to wrap up soon. State of Grace. State of Grace is a just decent melodic tea leaf reading, seemingly portending that Billy knew just around the corner that Christie would be leaving him. I don't really like the song too much.
No, you're right.
When in Rome, another shitty song. I mean, this one's really shitty, though. I wrote, just like the shitty title track, here's yet another disposable slice of white funk with its coal-stuffed butt cheeks clenched so tight that it shoots out a machine gun spray of duty diamonds.
Yikes. How many words have you used to describe human excrement just today? Just on this one recording.
Look, this is the wonder of the human language.
The art.
The English language is so beautiful because every other language has one word for duty. Right. We have 1,000.
This is what you're bringing to the music podcast genre.
I like to think that there are one or two other things. All right. And so it goes. The other great song on the album. It's nice that there's two at least. This is the only song on Stormfront that could have fit on any of his past records. It was written in 1983, but not released until 6 years later. As Billy says in the doc, and he explains it really well, it's got a sour note in almost every chord. It's a suspended chord and it builds tension. It's sort of like the end of a romance. No resolution, which is terrifying to consider. It conveys what's just beneath the words, a kind of pessimism and resignation because I knew it wasn't really going to work out. Now, that being said, and it did, of course, give its title to the doc, but this is not inspired by Christie. This was inspired by his affair with Elle Macpherson. Billy Joel was 33. She was a 19-year-old about to become a superstar herself, and Billy knew she'd soon be gone. The song was inspired by the Scottish ballad Barbara Allen, and the original 1983 demo was released on that box set I keep referring to, My Lives. On the 1989 album version, Billy sings and plays all the instrumentation, piano and synthesizers. And during the red carpet arrivals and interviews at the 66th Annual Grammy Awards in 2024, Live from E asked Billy to name his definitive song, and without hesitation, Billy said, and so it goes. It peaked at number 37 on Billboard, and it's really a great song, I think. Like a great, great song.
I think it's a good song. I think it's probably the best one on the record. And I think part of that is just because it's going back to basics. It's just like primarily him and a piano, which is why I think his upcoming Rick Rubin album, which will just be him and a piano, will be a success.
True. All right, so Billy doesn't at all sound like he's having fun on this album. That's the main thing I take away from it, is he just doesn't sound like he's having any fun. It sounds like he's taking life super seriously by 1989, and that the lighthearted glee, which grates to me like knives on sheets of aluminum on an innocent man, has all but evaporated entirely. The main problem with the record is it's just not a hell of a good time to listen to. It's a drag. Although it doesn't quite come off as a superstar complaining about his lot in life, it mainly swings back and forth between two poles: po-faced self-righteousness or dance floor rump shakers wherein he's too tightly coiled to let loose. Aside from the outstanding greatness of I Go to Extremes and So It Goes, there are a bunch of solid but unspectacular songs and a gaggle of misfires before Stormfront sputters to a close on the predictably wan second side. It's still an improvement on the bridge, though. Quick footnote, Billy recorded a demo during this time called Money or Love, which he released on My Lives, which would have been the third great song on this record. It's far better than most of what he shoveled out on Stormfront, so it's a real curiosity as to why he held it back, unless the answer itself can be found in the title of the song itself, which is really intriguing to consider, whether or not he did it for money or love. But that song is really worth listening to. I'll give the album, and I know I'm being generous, but I'll give it 2 3/4 stars.
Yeah, I agree with you that I think it's slightly better than the bridge. The cover is bizarrely very similar to the bridge. Instead of blue of the bridge, it's like a red reconceiving of that same cover design. Kudos for him for trying a rap song. We didn't start the fire. The Beastie Boys were huge at the time. I give it 0 1/2 stars.
That makes sense. I was thinking as you were talking about his last good album cover, and I'm going to have to say the last album cover that didn't outright suck, that was great and didn't suck, is Glass Houses. Yeah. He hasn't had a single good album cover since Glass Houses.
Right. I mean, I think The River of Dreams is an interesting cover.
We'll get there.
We're going to be talking about next.
August 10th, 1993, River of Dreams, the 12th studio album by William Joel. This had a more serious tone than what you'd find in his previous albums, and a lot of themes of trust and betrayal, particularly in A Minor Variation and The Great Wall of China, stemming from Frank Weber. Now that he'd already dealt with Artie Rip lyrically, now he had Frank Weber to deal with. It was Billy's fourth and last album to reach number one, which is amazing that this album reached number one. It was number one for 3 consecutive weeks. It went 5 times platinum, which I find amazing, actually. The album cover, which we just talked about, painted by Christie Brinkley. In 1993, Rolling Stone gave her the Top Picks Award for the best album cover of the year. However, in 2024, Rolling Stone also listed it as one of the 50 worst album covers of all time.
Oh, interesting.
They're a little undecided.
The best album cover of the year was Perfect Teeth by Unrest, of course.
It was, actually. It was.
But I think I kind of vaguely remember this record cover or this record coming out. But at first I thought it was like a Howard Finster thing. I was like, wow, this is kind of a cool like folk art cover.
It is kind of folk art. I mean, that basically is what it is.
Yeah.
It is the last rock album that Billy Joel has released to date, and it was designed to stand as his final pop rock record. That's how it was conceived. So initially, though, in the summer of 92, Billy held a series of writing and recording sessions on Shelter Island that he called the Shelter Island Sessions. Those sessions eventually produced 7 tracks, which were self-produced. Libertario, I think it was Libertario, he was talking with Billy, and he said, "You're wearing too many hats, dude." And Billy was dissatisfied with what he heard. And on the recommendation of Don Henley, who did a lot of co-writing and, a lot of putting his head together with Danny Kortchmar, a.k.a. Cooch, he came in and Kortchmar agreed to produce, provided that he be allowed to use session musicians on the recordings, to which Billy agreed. Only one song from the Shelter Island sessions, Shades of Grey, would make the final album in its original produced form. Billy took it hard that the album didn't yield any hit singles beyond the title track. He was really disappointed, and he further attributed his decision to stop releasing pop albums to lack of airplay, which that seems a little babyish to me. I mean, the guy has basically owned the radio for decades. And then one album, which frankly is not that great. He says, "The thing was, I put a lot of work into River of Dreams, and it was as if the business had left me behind because there are substantial songs on that album that never went anywhere. So I said, what's the point of putting myself through writing and recording if it doesn't mean what it's supposed to mean out there in the world? Look, there are people who wake up every day, like Mark Robinson and many, many others who do it because they have to, motherfucker. Because
because we like it.
Because you love it, yeah. I mean the same thing by saying that, like, the process of it is so wondrous, it's a joy unto itself.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I'm kind of like wondering, like, what on earth does he really not? I mean, he just released a song last year, which we're going to get to. But like, does he really just not write new music, or like, what's been going on for the last 40 years, 30 years, or whatever?
He's been cooking for his wife. Oh, hi, I'm Dave Gebroe. I threw my career as a licensed hearing instrument specialist in the trash, sold my house, and moved to the East Coast with my wife and 5-year-old son in order to focus on making the ultimate weekly podcast for music obsessives thrive. But weekly wasn't enough for me, so I bumped it up to 4 shows a week. Becoming a subscriber to Discograffiti's Patreon gives you access to hundreds of exclusive episodes. As a 2-show-per-week private, you get the weekly show by and for our Patreon family, the Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound podcast. As a 3-show-a-week lieutenant, you'll get early release, ad-free, extended director's cuts of the main show. They're the shows as they were intended to be heard. Plus, you'll gain access to half the Patreon archive and the upcoming Beach Boys Behind the Mirror companion episodes, which will feature dozens of special guests from within the Beach Boys camp talking about and rating their music. But as a 4-show-per-week major, you'll be drowning in a flood of must-hear binge listening, because I'll be bombarding you with episodes about super cool bands that are too subterranean for free Fridays. It's like going to music college, but with a tuition that makes all kinds of sense. Plus, our entire Patreon archive is yours. Discograffiti's Top 10, our Buried Treasure show, Rock Cousteau, our Slag Off show, Queasy Listening, and the Private Press with Paul Major. And all that for the price of only a cup of coffee a week. Times are tough, you say? Fret not, because there's a $1 tier. Or you could just join as a basic member and buy episodes piecemeal from our Patreon shop. Don't risk feeling badly about yourself by not giving. Check out patreon.com/discograffiti to find the tier that's right for you. Once again, that's patreon.com/discograffiti. This episode is brought to you in part by Bespoke LA. Located in the Fairfax district of Los Angeles, Bespoke LA is the modern podcaster's dream come true. It's got 2 podcast pods available, one with audio only and the other with both audio and video. Just think, you can start your own podcast tomorrow without investing a single penny in equipment. What, you don't have experience editing? Don't even sweat it. For an additional fee, Bespoke LA can edit your podcast. Or not, it's entirely up to you. Rates start at $75 an hour with discounts if you book 4 sessions at once. Go to bespokela.com/podcast. That's BSPOKELA.com/podcast for more information or to book your time today. And be sure to tell them that Dave sent you for a one-time 25% discount. So, Track 1, No Man's Land, the second single from the record. It's like a Negative on Suburbia song, which I can always get with that kind of message. And it peaked at number 18 on Billboard. But the issue here is not, because he had that song about suburbia on Street Life Serenader, and I loved it. But this is a really nasty and grouchy song. It could be my least favorite song on the record. Just a terrible, preachy opener. Like I said, I hate the suburbs, but this song just leaves a rancid taste in my mouth.
Don't you live in the suburbs?
I do, but only because I have to at the moment. I'm not a huge fan of the suburbs. I grew up kind of disliking them, but it's the way that he sings the song. There's really a kind of bite the hand that feeds you sort of vibe to the record.
I wrote down not terrible for this song, which means it's terrible adjacent.
Okay, The Great Wall of China, a.k.a. Frank Weber, How Dare You. This is the closest that Billy Joel has come to a diss track next to Stiletto. And for a guy who really stuck it to Billy, he's pretty protectively obtuse in his wordplay. I can't see how this stung Frank all that bad at all. I mean, the guy got off pretty easy, if you ask me. And the song's another bust, unfortunately. It's a pretty flaccid attempt at rocking out, which by this point, I mean, it was very few and far between where Billy was able to convincingly rock out. You love this song, don't you?
I thought it was okay. Like, I could get through it. I have a fact check, unfortunately, on something that I said a long time ago on this Bill Joel podcast that we're doing. I think I was relating that Liberty's name, that was a nickname and not his real name. And it's not Liberatorio or whatever we've been saying. It's Liberatori.
Oh, that's okay. That's close enough.
So I apologize.
I was so nervous, dude.
Mr. DeVito, I apologize.
I was so nervous that you were going to say it was something like, Frank, because it's become the running gag of the whole show. The whole series is Liberatorio.
Right, I know. Do you think do you think Bill or Liberatori will ever listen to this? That'd be kind of cool.
I'd like to think that they both will together.
Yeah, okay.
Blonde Over Blue, I think the first good song on the record. Not great, but good. While writing the song, Billy said he was thinking of Roy Orbison, and you can definitely hear the resemblance to the man's distinguishing trill in the chorus when he sings the title. You know, it's about light over darkness, which, again, I can always get with that theme. And for anyone who's battling against the blue or the loneliness and depression in life, it's a good tune. First good song on the record, not a great one, but this is really the only good song on side one, I think. And it's not even great. It's really like an Innocent Man style. It kind of does an Innocent Man thing to Roy Orbison with this song.
I'm going to be honest, I only wrote down notes for 5 songs. I could barely get through this entire record.
I know. All right, so the next one, A Minor Variation, this song truly sucks. So this is an anti-Frank Weber song, and it's based off of a really annoying descending riff. It's a 3-note riff that runs through the entire bloated 5.5-minute runtime. And it's conjoined with this constipated John Popper faux groan of a vocal that is really bad. It's the only time Billy's ever sang like this. And it is bad, like real bad. Notwithstanding you having any notes on this or this being one of the 3 songs, which I doubt it would be, right?
I don't have notes on this one.
Okay. Shades of Grey.
It's terrible.
Shades of Grey. Why is this song a Boston's More Than a Feeling sound-alike? I have no idea. He doesn't sound like Billy Joel in this. The whole song sounds like More Than a Feeling. And why that song? This is from the Shelter Island sessions. Billy sounds like a totally different human being here. It's a weird stab at actual hard rock, and probably the closest he's come to Attila in 33 years, but ultimately it's kind of a mixed bag. His vocal is intriguingly youthful. He comes off kind of like Mickey Thomas adjacent, like Starship. It really sounds like that. Yeah, so I don't get what's going on with this song at all. Do you have any clue? None? I need some answers on this one. I mean,
that's why we have to get Bill on. We need to do an episode with Bill.
This is the one that goes da 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 da, like literally that with no lyrics.
Your version is much better than the
Thank you.
Recording.
I wrote so many questions, so few answers. So yeah, I don't get it. All About Soul is the 3rd single, featuring backing vocals by Color Me Bad. Peaked at number 29 in the US. His final top 40 single. There's an unfinished demo version of this on that My Lives box set called Motorcycle Song. And literally up to this point in the record, there's 6 songs. I only count 1 halfway decent song and 5 tunes that range between stinker and mediocre. Then he solves the issue that's been plaguing him his entire career. And he comes out with a B-side that's better than the first side. Unfortunately, the first side's so bad that literally anything would have been better. So first there's Lullaby, Goodnight My Angel, the 4th and final single from the LP, inspired by Alexa Ray, his daughter. It peaked at number 77. It's this really convoluted history that it has to it. It was originally written as a prelude to the song The River of Dreams as a monophonic Gregorian chant.
Oh, interesting.
And then it goes on, but it's just not good enough a song to go run down the entire history of that. It's a pretty song. I don't think it's a great song, but it's pretty. Do you like this one?
I think this is the only one that this is my favorite song from the record. And I think it almost, and it's again him primarily with just a piano. So it has that Billy Joel sound. And it almost sounds like it's, like an outtake from like Cold Spring Harbor or something like that. I'm not saying it's like that good, but it's
stylistically. It's decent. And then River of Dreams, which, he talked about, this being literally a dream that he had. And then he ignored it and couldn't stop singing it and was like, all right, fuck, I'll do it. It was the first single from the album. It peaked at number 3 on both the US and the UK charts. It's Billy's best charting single of the 90s, as well as his final top 10 in either country to date. It also hit the top spot in Australia, New Zealand, and on the Canadian and US adult contemporary charts. It borrows liberally from black gospel music and spirituals, and, has some elements of doo-wop in it as well. There's a gospel choir, and the lyrics deal with inner peace and the afterlife. And, there's a spot where Billy can be heard singing the Cadillacs version of Gloria as the music fades out. This is probably my second favorite after the final track.
First of all, I think it sounds like a ripoff of like Weem Away to me.
Yeah, there's that.
And I wrote down awful. I didn't know it was like number 3. Like, why is he complaining? he's complaining just because he got one gigantic hit and not like 4 hit singles.
I know. That seems like one of the only whack things that I've ever come across quote-wise. Because otherwise, he's pretty fair about his stuff. He knows when he's written shitty stuff, and sometimes he dismisses what I think are really good things that he's done. But, he's way off target here. 2,000 Years is, to me, the weakest song from this final blast of Billy's songwriting fire during this run to the finale. But what it does do, and I think this is a pretty solid thing that it takes care of, is it takes on the pomposity that otherwise would have wrecked Famous Last Words, and allows the final track to not only breathe, but to play out in a winningly understated way that makes it as moving as it is. So instead, 2,000 Years sponged off that pomposity, and, this is the heavy track. Mm-hmm. So it performs a function, I think. And then Famous Last Words, I think, is terrific. It's him looking back on his career, and he dots what I think is a beautiful lyric with a smattering of understated Easter eggs that keeps things fun and light and totally sidesteps the quicksand into which this undertaking could have easily sunk. And he really makes the most out of the moment and doesn't stay in it a second too long. I think it's by far the best song on the album. No competition. In fact, I think it's the only great song on the record.
Wow.
And the first song that he ever wrote by the Echoes, which we were talking about in episode number 1 of this series, is a call forward to this song. And this calls back to it.
A great song. Wow. I don't think there's any great songs on here. I thought it was all right. One of the better songs on the record, yes.
Okay, so clearly it was the right time to stop. The great songs were becoming... The great songs were becoming fewer and fewer. The spot-on specificity of the lyrics were bleeding out and becoming too universal. The tone became too bitter, and his personal life was falling apart. As he says, it was time to put that book away and live the life he was just trying to write about. The record's primary feature is its stone-faced seriousness, and ultimately it's probably his least welcoming work. However, after years and years of making records professionally, Billy's finally solved the issue that's plagued his career for decades now. He's figured out how to make side 2 of his final album a strong run of songs, all of them leading up in a breadcrumb trail to the one great song on the thing. Unfortunately, though, now it's the first side that truly blows, boasting only a single decent song, not even great, just decent, Blonde Over Blue. Hey, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Even in transitioning to retirement, there are lessons to be learned. 2 stars.
I was not familiar with this record at all. It doesn't have like a We Didn't Start the Fire. I guess this one song was number 3, but I have no recollection of it.
Me too.
I thought the cover was cool, as I already said. I think there's kind of these soul and bluesy songs that I didn't love. But I do think it's like I can actually kind of get through it easier than The Bridge and Stormfront somehow. And I gave it 1.5.
All right, so Billy and Christie Brinkley announced on April 13th, 1994 that they had separated, and their divorce was finalized in August 94. The two remained friends, and Billy told his biographer, Christie likes to joke that the end of the marriage spelled the end of my songwriting career. At least I think it's a joke. September 27, 2001, Fantasies and Delusions, the 13th and final studio album that was composed by Billy. It's the only one that he ever released that contained classical compositions, but it doesn't feature Billy. It features his longtime friend, the British-Korean pianist Richard Hyun-ki-ju, performing compositions written by Billy. It was his 19th album to chart on Billboard and reached number 83 in October 2001. The album debuted at number 1 on Billboard's Top Classical Albums chart and stayed there for 18 weeks.
Wow.
That's wild. Billy from the doc on Fantasies and Delusions, quote, "The reason I named it Fantasies and Delusions is because I recognized I'm delusional to think I'm a classical composer. You know, I'm a rock and roll piano player. It's a fantasy. It's a delusion. Let's call it what it is." So again, the guy's cool. He's got a pretty good level of self-awareness, I think. This was recorded in New York with help from veteran production coordinator Bill Zampino and Richie Cannata, who left the band, before Glass Houses, I believe. Later, the album was re-recorded in Vienna, Austria for final release. The cover design is based on the covers of the Schirmer's Library of Musical Classics sheet music book. books, and Gramophone UK called the album a pleasing, undemanding sequence of classical pieces from one of pop's giants. I don't have a ton of things to say about this. It was nice to listen to.
Yeah, it was pleasant. I liked it. Nothing bad. I didn't want to skip over anything.
I did not give this a rating because I feel like I'm not necessarily the right guy to rate this. But I'll just say it's very pretty. It's very calming and relaxing. Mm-hmm. And outside of a 76-minute diversion from having to hear my wife and son argue about cleaning up his play area, I'm not sure how else to judge this music. But I definitely recommend giving it a spin. It's nice and it's worth hearing.
Right. I don't think I may have heard about it when it came out or something, but I had no recollection of that. So it was all essentially brand new to me. I give it 3 3/4.
Nice. Wow, you really liked it.
Mm-hmm.
So just to get us up to date to that single, by 2002, Billy was again deeply depressed and drinking heavily. He was touring with Elton John and one night had an onstage meltdown at the Garden, randomly shouting out famous battle sites. Bunker Hill! In 2001, Elton publicly castigated Billy on his drinking, and their relationship has never really recovered. Between 2002 and 2004, Billy had 3 car accidents on Long Island, once smashing into a house. He later blamed bad street lighting, local wildlife, and 9/11. He checked into rehab but never bought into it. What he said was, "The fact is, I like to drink, sometimes too much," which sounds like basically they're saying the same thing. Isn't that what rehab says? Anyway, the one bright spot was Katie Lee, a college girl from Ohio whom he had picked up in the lobby of the Peninsula Hotel. After graduating, she moved into Joel's house in the Hamptons, and in 2004, they married. Billy Joel was 55, Katie Lee was 23, just 4 years older than his daughter, Alexa. They moved into a $4 million loft in Tribeca. Just months into the marriage, Billy was in rehab again. After a stint at Betty Ford, Katie Lee encouraged him to get back out on the road, and he began playing live again. As the marriage unraveled, Billy held out hope. He told Katie Lee he wanted to go to a therapist, and at that moment, she began talking about furniture. He realized, quote, "It's not going to happen. We're over. Just don't send me messages. Don't leave me cute little phone calls. Don't tease me. Don't fuck with me. Just end it. Because I'm an old man now, a vulnerable man. Don't do that to an old guy." They ended their 5-year marriage in 2009. So, on February 14th, 2011, on Valentine's Day, Billy wrote a letter to his band with the subject heading, "The Rest of My Life," in which he said he wanted to draw things to a close and retire completely from public life. Then his 4th wife, Alexis, tied the knot with Billy in 2015. She's unimpressed, quote, with the whole Billy Joel thing. There's a line in And So It Goes where she says, and I wrote this down exactly as she said it, "He makes a mean salmon teriyaki. He would have it marinating all day for me and have it ready with my vegetables, and I would come home to my salmon, my vegetables, and a glass of wine." So it was wonderful. That made me want to dive through the TV and have a long sit-down convo with Billy, because it became clear to me. I mean, look, I do the arc for each series that I do, where I look at everyone from 30,000 feet listening to their material and getting to know the artist. And I felt like the arc gave me the ability to see what was going on. And I am clear as a bell that Billy Joel is only doing penance for a botched past. I mean, to me, that is an obvious notion that should be totally obvious to Billy. And if Billy is listening, or if anyone that knows Billy is listening, you got to tell him that Dave Gebroe just unlocked the key to his psychological present, and that he needs to know that he is in the wrong marriage. February 1st, 2024, Turn the Lights Back On. Billy Joel surprise releases a single that debuted at number 11 on the Billboard Adult Contemporary chart. It held that position for another week before subsequently rising to number 10, which gave Billy his 24th top 10 single on the Adult Contemporary chart. It also entered the Billboard Hot 100 at number 62, which became his first entry on the chart since his shitty cover of Bob Dylan's To Make You Feel My Love. I think this is something of a wet fart of a return after 31 long years. This really could have been just about anyone, and I wouldn't have given it a second thought. Some of the piano trills about halfway in are decently pretty, but it's a pretty flat melody, and the vocal sounds at least tweaked with auto-tune. And whether it was or wasn't, Famous Last Words did it a hell of a lot more eloquently, and I recommend he turn the lights back off. I give it 2 stars.
I liked it. I liked that it was mostly just him and the piano. And I think when, after taking 30 years off and this is like the thing you come back with, it's not the best Billy Joel song, no. But I think it's cool that he made a new song and released it. And it doesn't really sound like him, but I think part of that is 30 years of aging and your voice changes, probably. I gave it 3.99.
Wow.
Did you watch the video?
No, I didn't.
Because I think when you watch a video, you think the song is better than it is.
Okay.
But anyway, it's a cool video. It's like an AI thing, which I generally wouldn't like, but it has like him throughout the ages.
Okay.
So it's like Cold Spring Harbor, Stranger, and it's like he's aging during the video, and it's kind of cool.
That's cool. That's like, is it that Elton John video with Justin Timberlake playing him?
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, that's a cool video. All right, The Ark. Now, this was a special one for me. It really was. I wrote and rewrote and rewrote. If it feels overly rewritten, then I apologize. But there was a time when you and I were prepping for this, Mark, where I went back every day just to make sure that it was exactly as I was thinking. I wanted this to be a perfect reflection of how I'm feeling about this, because for whatever reason, this became like a think piece for me that wound up meaning a lot more than any of the arcs I've ever written for the entire show. So here's the overview and shape of Billy Joel's arc, as seen by Dave Gebroe. The dirt poor boy from Hicksville may have been showered with more than he'd ever wanted or had imagined he was even worth, but still, he never got what he needed, and that's a shame. It's a shame when anyone's denied that. I'll bet he'd have traded it all in for a single muttered I love you under his dad's breath, or the assurance of a warm after-school hug from a mom for once not bawling her eyes out. Sadly, though, that was too big an ask for Billy, and he almost checked out for good before the distractions of rock stardom offered him temporary solace. Is Billy Joel the most successful, formerly suicidal human being on the planet? Be careful what you wish for surely applies, but only if he'd consciously set out to attain what came to pass. And I'm not convinced he knew he even had it in him. After my deep dive into his river of dreams, I feel I understand why he chose to dam the thing up. Many wives later, and just as many bank accounts sucked dry by them and others, many brutally overrude tabloid stories later, so many snotty douches just like me, not bothering to take him seriously, wouldn't he be crazy to not withhold? That gift of his was born romantically open-hearted. And then the 80s hit, and with it, a progressive reliance on form in lieu of content, and he unknowingly teed himself up for reductive meme-worthiness. Okay, so maybe I've stopped outright hating on 80s Joel, but I'm surprised he got as far as 1982 with his aesthetic hide intact. Billy Joel is a miracle. Strip away your preconceived notions of the man, as I have, and you come face to face with a manic depressive who goes to extremes with either sadness or euphoria, yet somehow also managed to be universally feted as the standard normie's go-to piano man. Who am I then to deny the craft involved in his work? Who am I to hold its effect at arm's length, to bypass a connection? Sure, giving in and conceding to lemminghood gives me the existential jitters. It makes me feel infinitesimally small and unseen. But is it really hipper to dig deeper, to explore the crevices, gutters, and byways of obscurity? Or is admitting love for the best of what Billy's given of himself the coolest possible gesture to make? Why even bother making a cool gesture at all? Why not just listen and respond? So I listened then. I listened over and over and over. And so here is my response. Billy Joel, I love you. I'll keep exploring the gutters too, but that doesn't mean I don't now finally love what you do. I even respect your mistakes. Yeah, that's right, even the gutter balls. So thank you for making the notion of an average seeming stumblebum scooping up supermodels something with which I can connect and even view as conceivability. Thank you, too, for donning those boxing gloves as a kid, only to then get the shit beaten out of you. I'll tell you what, I'll do my part and I'll take one on the chin for you anytime. It's the least I can do. My top 3 records, in order? Actually, I'm going to go top 5. My 5th favorite is 52nd Street. My 4th is Cold Spring Harbor. My 3rd is Turnstiles. My 2nd is Street Life Serenade. And number 1, obviously, is The Stranger. Worst album is easily An Innocent Man.
I didn't realize I was supposed to write a 10-page essay on this.
No, you weren't.
What you wrote was beautiful, and I like the way you wove a few lyrics in there. I saw the documentary, and then I recalled, having glass houses and purchasing that album and some of his other songs. And he's so reviled in general that I was thinking, he has some good songs. I think we should talk about him on the podcast because in essence, he's just a human, just like, gosh, people go nuts for like David Bowie, or he's just a human like Lennon and McCartney, and he's just trying to make music. And he did some, even though there's so much pastiche, especially in the 80s, that he did have his own thing. And I think there's some okay songs in there.
I think seeing him as less of a punchline and more of a real person, it took a key and unlocked a door for me that made this a really important journey for me. That is the last thing that people are really going to expect who know what I do and who know how I felt about Billy Joel. I take him completely seriously now. And I feel bad for him through the 80s because he really, truly had it all. And, I don't think he's a happy person now. And I don't see a guy who is married to the person he's married to and slaving over a hot stove every day for her as doing it because he really feels like he wants to genuinely do it. I feel like he's trapped in a karmic cycle, and I can see why he is. But I hope that she's at least good to him, that she at least blows him once in a while or something, because, she's getting the better end of the deal.
And I think the other reason I wanted you to do this was that I have not listened to every single episode of Discograffiti. It's on my list. But it seems like you do a lot of shows where you like are complete, like a super fan, I think is what you call it. And I thought it would be cool because I think when I first mentioned it, you said, I hate Billy Joel, which is what most people say. And I was like, well, you should, it'd be such a cool thing for you to do this because it's different than what you've done before. So I'm kind of happy that you've done it.
This, to me, is a very important series. It really is. I got the perfect guy to be in it. You kind of audition yourself. I mean, you basically, you pitched me on it. Your revisionist history is not appreciated, but you... But, this was a hell of a good time, and it's not down, the expected avenue of either of what we do. Your fan base surely are not expecting something like this.
Yeah, what fan base? Everybody's going to be listening to this and like, oof, that guy likes Billy Joel.
As long as Green Day doesn't follow this one up, I'm good with it.
Oh, right. Speaking of which, Billy Joe from Green Day is the Billy Joel of the 90s. And the
Perfect.
2000s.
Perfect. This was great. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it, man.
All right. Thank you, dude.
All right. That about does it. Stay tuned because next week brings upon us our Happy New Year's special. It's a glimpse into the demented mind of a man who's very important to this show, but his identity is a secret, so you'll have to tune in to discover who I landed for the first interview of 2026. Okay, here's the week up ahead. This Sunday, our weekly show within a show, the Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound podcast, drops for our Patreon's private tier. These are real people with talent and a burning fire deep inside, just like you and I. Then come Monday, the major tier gets a very special treat. Monday's bonus episode is another Chuck Chat from the Chuck Granata Pet Sounds interview series, this one with Hal Blaine. If you prayed for all the things you wanted Hal Blaine to talk about in a stream of consciousness style without a filter, this is exactly the interview you'd get. What it was like to work with an acid-addled Brian Wilson, how it felt working at the Beach Boys home studio with the rest of the group, attempting to work with the producer Joe Thomas, how it felt having Murray Wilson around, working with a wildly inebriated John Phillips, and how Hal feels he got accepted into his senior living community. There'll be a very short sneak peek running publicly for free on Monday morning, but the entirety of the show will only be accessible on the major tier of our Patreon. And then on Wednesday, the Lieutenant tier gets their early release, ad-free, super extended director's cut of our Happy New Year special. It's the episode as it was truly intended to be heard, with all the essentials left intact. And then come Friday, everyone else gets to join in on the action. A heartfelt Discograffiti thanks goes out to my beautiful wife and son, Jen and Mason, Mark Robinson, Billy Joel, Rudy Fishman, Becky Boyd, Bespoke LA, my mom, my dad, my incredibly loyal fans, and especially the entire Patreon community, the Soldiers of Sound. I love every last one of you, and this show would not exist without you, my friends. Speaking of friends, it's high time for some new ones. They're in our Facebook group, Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound. That's the best way to find out what's coming up on the show, but there's a hell of a lot more. You get recaps of the day in music history, the ability to pitch questions to guests, polls that put you in the driver's seat on guest and band decisions, access to a thriving creative hub if you're looking for a collaborator, and much, much more. So make sure you don't miss out. You can find the link to the Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound Facebook page right there in the show notes. And if you don't mess with the Zuck, no sweat. Just email me at info@discograffiti.com and I'll keep you in the loop. So now that it's done and you want more, another way to dive even deeper into that liminal zone right smack dab in between Mark Robinson and Billy Joel is to leap head first into Dean Wareham Rates Galaxy 500. That's episodes 205 to 207. Sonic Boom rates Spacemen 3, that's 183 to 186. Bill Medley rates The Righteous Brothers, that's 181 and 182. Jenny Toomey and Kristen Thompson rate Tsunami, that's episode 180. Michael Imperioli rates The Smiths, that's 164 and 165. The Pixies, that's episode 18. Nirvana's episode 30. PJ Harvey's episode 12. Bob Mayer rates The Replacements as 28 and 29. And of course, the legendary Mark Robinson series is our 16-hour interview with the man about his entire discography, and that's episodes 128 to 136. And of course, be sure to mark your calendars, because next Friday, January 2nd, 2026, we're coming at you with our Happy New Year special. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss it. And so, from now till then, don't let our youth go to waste, lads and ladies. It's Discograffiti.